they dealt with the Europeans. They made trade with the Europeans. And one thing which they traded were slaves. Dear friends of the New European art and culture, this is Ingo from About Africa and the Rest of the World. And I was in Hamburg, and in Hamburg at the Markk, the Museum Markk, to watch the, let's say, goodbye exhibition of the Benin Bronzes they have, because they want to give them back. And let's see this, for me, really interesting, very, very interesting, very, very good exhibition. And here's some, let's say, dark stories behind all those wonderful objects. Have fun. Yes, and start us now with the title Geraubte Geschichte, Looted History of Benin Kingdom. And there's a written text about the things like what has happened. And here I can guess this is the Ober. This is a plaque of the Ober in this exhibition, which is really fantastic. I think it's a very good one. You can see a lot of objects. You can see the objects in real life, not without in real life. You can see when they're behind glass, then it's a glass which is not reflecting so much. So it's really very well done here in Hamburg in the Markk. And here's some of those famous plaques, bronze plaques. And here, this is for sacrifice, for ritual sacrifice. And you know, the work of these artists in the Kingdom of Benin, they really have been fantastic. It was really fantastic. And yes, this is some kind of a goodbye exhibition, because the Hamburg is planning, the Museum of the Markk, the museum in Hamburg, is planning to restitute all their objects. If, of course, Benin and if Nigeria, the Kingdom of Benin and Nigeria, want to have them back. And here, really, this is behind the glass, but nearly no reflecting. And sometimes I'm sorry that my camera movements are not so smooth this time, because I did it without my gimbal. I filmed it without my gimbal, just from the hands, but I think it worked very well. But the point of it is, for me, that these are not only great objects, but you can tell stories about these objects, and you can at least tell 4 blood stories about these objects. And what do you mean with that? Blood story 1 is the real, the famous one. This is from the punitive expedition of the English. The Englishmen did this 1897 together with some African troops. They went, to Benin Kingdom. They had a war against the Benin and his troops. They killed a lot of Africans. After this, the palace and some parts of the village, of the city, burned, and they found those objects. And they looted them. They looted them, and yes, and this were sold in the world by some auction houses. And Hamburg has some, London has some, Berlin, and so on and so on. But this is only the first blood story behind, this killing of Africans by British troops and the helping troops, which were sometimes people from near the Benin Kingdom. But there's a second blood story. It's called punitive expedition. Why punitive expedition? The point is that some months ago there was a delegation of some Englishmen with, I think, 200 or 300 Africans who were there as carrier, who tried to visit the Ober. And yes, of course, it was about colonialism and things, and getting power and all the things, and trade power. But the point is, they were unarmed. They had no weapons, none of them. And the king, the Ober, the troops of the Ober, they went and they slaughtered this delegation. They killed some of the Englishmen, and they killed dozens and dozens of Africans, which were unarmed, though it was a slaughtering. And this is, here, the fantastic 2 commemorative heads. This is, wow, really great. And they killed these unweaponed Africans. And this is the second blood story. And the point is that this is called, in England, it was called the Benin Massacre, not because of the Africans who were killed, but of course because of the British one. This is a trophy head. In the early times, if there were a strong enemy, they took his head, and after his head, they made a trophy head. So it looks very nice, but it was from a dead man. That was the story number 3, the blood story number 3 behind. This is a fortune teller word. That the Kingdom of Benin was very, very rich. Why? Because they made deals, they dealt with the Europeans, they made trade with the Europeans. And one thing which they traded were slaves. They gave slaves to the Europeans. You know, the Europeans, for example, the Portuguese, they were just at the harbor. They did not want to go in because, inner Africa was dangerous. So they got goods for slaves. And so there was thousands and thousands and thousands Africans went to slavery because of the Kingdom of Benin. They did this for centuries, really for centuries. So this is the bloodstone number 3. They were rich, they were wealthy, and one point because they were so rich and they have been really a colonialistic, regional colonialistic power there. And they are so rich because they took slaves and gave them to the Europeans. That's once again a great head. So who is better, the one who's making slave and selling them, or the one who's buying them, or the one who's using them? I think all are very bad points. And what is the story number 4 behind it, the blood story number 4? You know, they exchanged slaves, but what did they get? For example, but let's see, this is such a fantastic object. This is an oboe. Yeah, fantastic. And what did they get? They give them slaves to the Europeans, and they get, for example, brass. They get copper. They get the material with which they did those fantastic objects. So that means that what you see here, for example, with this fantastic stuff, the point is that the material was exchanged. They get the material, and there's the blood on the material because they got it for slaves. So we have 4 really blood stories behind these objects there. Here's once again such a trophy head where they kill their enemies. And you know, so we have 4 blood stories. We have a punitive expedition where the British troops, they looted all those objects. That's why Hamburg wants to give them back. You have number 2 blood story is, of course, the so-called Benin massacre, where some dozens of Africans were slaughtered, and English people too, by the troops of the Oba. We have number 3, this is for centuries, and for the centuries, the Kingdom of Benin, the Obas, were one of the biggest slave traders in the whole continent. That's why they were the rich. They have been slave traders. And of course the Portuguese and the other one. They took them here. And number 4 is the brass, the copper, the material which you need to forge these fantastic things. Yeah, this, for example, is I think it's a man, it's not a woman, but looking great. And with the material to forge these fantastic things, they paid with slaves for this. So it's a bloody history, and it's a very complex. It's a whole story which is dark, which is very interesting. It has a lot to do with colonialism, of course, with looting, but shows that the Obas of Benin and the kingdom was really, really, really heavy blood, not bloodthirsty, but they did know what they did. And this is one of my favorites here. They know what they did. And what they did, for example, was, yes, selling slaves. So these objects, I think they will all, maybe they will go back to Nigeria. You still can see it in Hamburg in this, for me, very, very good exhibition, because you can see the objects, you can see what great art the workers have done. There with the bronze, the workers, the artists, the artisans, whatever, how you want to name them. Here's some more. And so, yes, it's really important to go to Hamburg, but to know more of the story. It's not only about looting, it's about the slavery and about some other things in Africa as well. Sorry to say this, as a German, we have made enough, really enough evil things in the past. And this is a nice thing. This is a medicine container. Okay, see you.